Hello and welcome back to the Crime Reel. Today's case has kindly been written by Pimpozza again, detailing another Italian true crime case. Thank you once again, Pimpozza, for writing this story. For today's true crime narration, we look at the heartbreaking case of Lorys Stival, a case with many twists and turns and an unforgivable crime which broke the hearts of the Italian nation. In the early afternoon of the 29th of November 2014, Veronica Panarello arrived to collect her 8-year-old son from school, only to be told that he had never shown up that day. As events began to unfold, it soon became clear that there was something way more sinister behind the disappearance of 8-year-old Lorys, whose father would be left reeling in shock after reading a simple Facebook post. Santa Croce Camarina is a small town in the province of Ragusa in Sicily, Italy's largest and most densely populated island off the far south coast of the peninsula. It was here that Veronica Panarello met her future husband, 18-year-old Davide Stival. This was back in 2004 when she was just 16 and working as a waitress in a local bar. The two began to see each other on a regular basis, and as they grew closer, Veronica would share her family troubles with him and complain about frequent arguments with her mother. When she announced she had been thrown out of a house after a violent quarrel, Davide took her under his wing, offering her a roof over her head at his parents' house, where she was treated like a third daughter. Veronica soon fell pregnant, and the young couple were determined that this would unite them even more as a family. Lorys Stival was born on the 18th of June 2006, a bouncing baby boy who instantly brought great joy to his parents and grandparents. In spite of the fact Davide worked long hours and was often away from home for extended periods due to his job as a lorry driver, Veronica was content and didn't feel lonely as she devoted herself to her son. The couple were very much in love, making plans for their future together, and they married in 2007. They welcomed another child, Diego, in 2010. Lorys was a lively child, if somewhat introverted with people he didn't know well. He loved nothing more than sitting in his father's lorry and going for a drive. His teachers described him as extremely intelligent and much loved by his classmates. His passion was karate, and he regularly attended classes and was making great progress. In the early afternoon of Saturday the 29th of November 2014, Veronica arrived to collect little Lorys from primary school, only to be told that he had never arrived that day and that nobody had seen him. The 25-year-old mother panicked and began to shout loudly, "Who has taken my son?" By 1 p.m, she was in the police station reporting his disappearance. Veronica stated that she had accompanied her youngest child, Diego, to play school that morning before taking Lorys to school. She then attended her usual cooking class, where everyone confirmed her presence. Following Veronica's report, a search was quickly underway for the missing boy, who it was believed might have been abducted. In such a small town, news spread fast. Everyone was talking about the disappearance of little Lorys, and many locals quickly joined in the search. It didn't take long for some very sad news to emerge. Just a few hours later, at around 4 p.m, the police received a phone call from a 65-year-old man named Orazio Fidoni. He had been patrolling an area a few miles out of town by an old mill when he came across the body of a young child in an irrigation ditch. He claimed that his wife had insisted that he join the search for the missing child, as he was an avid hunter who was familiar with the area. Orazio said he knew the family quite well and wanted to help in any way he could. However, the police remained unconvinced by his story, and Orazio instantly became a suspect. His car was seized for inspection and he was interrogated for several hours. Gossip spread fast and Italian news channels reported constantly about the case. many were convinced of this man's involvement. Veronica was accompanied to the scene, where she tearfully confirmed the body was that of her son before being swiftly led away. A police officer at either side of her propping her up to stop her collapsing in grief. However, it soon became clear Orazio Fidoni had absolutely nothing to do with the crime once the police began to check the surveillance cameras in the area. It emerged that Veronica had never taken her son to school on that fateful morning. There was absolutely no evidence to support her claim, and she was not seen on any of the local surveillance cameras near the building. It was claimed that she put her children in the car at around 8:15 a.m, but Lorys was protesting, not wanting to go to school that day. In a later grainy image taken from a private video camera, Lorys allegedly walked back home using the keys his mother had given him to enter the house. Although it was never determined for certain that this image was of Lorys, it is known that Veronica returned a short time later and parked her car in the garage rather than in an allocated space on the road. Investigators became suspicious as to why she decided to do this when she normally left her vehicle outside. Veronica remained in the house for 35 minutes, during which time she allegedly strangled her son with an electrical cable. It was believed that a quarrel had broken out about Lorys not wanting to go to school, and his mother, tired of his disobedience, lost her patience and strangled him, subsequently loading his lifeless body into the car parked in the garage, which was out of sight from the road. It was then claimed that she drove to the outskirts of town, where she mercilessly dumped his body in the ditch. Her vehicle was spotted on surveillance cameras driving towards the old mill, where the child's body was discovered a few hours later by Orazio Fidoni. Meanwhile, Davide Stival, Lorys' 28-year-old father, was returning home from Lombardy in the far north of Italy. He had been informed of Lorys' disappearance, but assumed his lively and sometimes capricious son was simply playing games. At around 9:30 a.m. that morning, he had spoken to his wife, as he did every morning when he was away, and she had assured him the kids were fine and well. She said that she had taken Diego to nursery and Lorys to school, and both sons had been excited about their father's imminent return. Davide continued his long and lonely journey south, keen to get back to his family to sort things out. It transpired that nobody could actually face telling Davide just how serious the situation was, not even after the poor child's body had been found. Veronica subsequently stated that she simply didn't want to worry her husband over the phone. However, during a break, Davide started scrolling through some Facebook posts. That is when he suddenly learned about his son's death in the most terrible way imaginable. A simple message shared by a friend on Facebook that read, "R.I.P. Lorys." For Davide, it was the most terrible thing he could ever have imagined, and he later stated that it was the worst day of his life. On 9th of December 2014, Veronica Panarello was arrested for the murder of her son. Veronica vehemently denied the charge, and Davide initially stood by his wife, stating that she had always been a loving, caring mother, and was actually incapable of such a heinous act. An outpouring of sympathy followed for the distraught father. The nation was shocked, angry, and in disbelief that a mother might have killed a sweet, innocent child in cold blood. An autopsy determined that Lorys had died somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. on the 29th of November 2014. The cause of death was strangulation, and his wrist showed evidence of having been held firm with plastic electrical ties. As the net closed around her, Veronica suddenly claimed that she could no longer recall what had happened. The funeral took place in Santa Croce Camarina on the 18th of December 2014. Veronica's request to attend was denied, and she remained behind bars. Family members solemnly carried the little white coffin into the church, where people had placed numerous wreaths, soft toys and messages. Lorys Stival was at the front of the procession, weeping uncontrollably. The coffin was then taken around the square so that the townsfolk could say their last goodbyes to a little boy so many had known and cared about. Countless people turned out to pay their respects. Many school friends and teachers held white balloons. One banner read, "The tragic death of little Lorys has deeply affected us all. The whole community shares in the family's pain." For over a year, Veronica Panarello proclaimed to know nothing, but then began to change her version of events. She stated that Lorys had refused to go to school that day and ran back inside the house. She proceeded to take her youngest son to nursery and, upon her return, she discovered the lifeless body of Lorys. She claimed he had died after playing with plastic ties and accidentally strangled himself. In total fear of what her husband would think, she dumped her son's body in the ditch. She continued with this account for some time, and Davide continued to visit his wife. Davide, described as a gentle soul, now so terribly confused and distraught at the loss of his son, simply begged Veronica for the truth. After months of talks in prison with her husband, angry, tired and bitterly disappointed with his wife's ever-changing version of events, Veronica dropped the latest bombshell on him. She said that although she had been present when Lorys was killed, she was not the one who had committed the actual crime. Instead, she pointed the finger at her father-in-law, Lorys Stival. Not only did she accuse Davide's father of being Lorys's real killer, but she claimed to have had an intimate relationship with him. Veronica stated that she and her 52-year-old father-in-law were having an affair. Lorys had found out and said he was going to tell his father. For this reason, Veronica alleged that Andrea instructed her to tie the child's wrists before he killed his grandson by strangling him with the USB cable. Together, they then loaded his lifeless body into the car, drove to the outskirts of town, and dumped Lorys in the ditch. Andrea totally denied the accusation, stating he was dumbfounded that she could invent such a story. He was investigated, but no proof whatsoever was found of his involvement. He had a strong and firm alibi as, now separated from Davide's mother, he was with his girlfriend, Andreina Fiorella, and they were far away from the crime scene at the time. Phone records had shown nothing more than short calls between Andrea and Veronica during the months prior to Lorys's death, all in line with ordinary parental relationships. Andreina confirmed to the court that she and Andrea had only been together a short time and that she wouldn't dream of giving a false alibi to someone who might have killed a child. Lorys Stival never doubted his father's innocence, stating it was just another of Veronica's numerous lies and that his father had become an additional victim. Davide, now a broken man, had begged his wife for the truth, but her version of events had become more and more bizarre. The trial began on the 17th of October 2016. Veronica was accused of murder and disposing of a corpse. Her defence tried to argue that she had a history of psychiatric disorders, borderline personality disorder, and had twice tried to take her own life. In fact, after a lengthy investigation and a 160-page report, it was determined that she was perfectly sane, well aware of the crimes she had committed, and would be judged accordingly. Veronica Panarello was found guilty beyond all reasonable doubt of murder and concealment of a body and sentenced to 30 years imprisonment. An appeal would be rejected and the sentence upheld by the Supreme Court on the 21st of November 2019. The supposedly loving mother had done everything to obstruct the course of justice and was now described as a monster who had murdered her child in cold blood before callously disposing of him like a sack of rubbish. She had then gone to her cooking class as if nothing had happened, Later, fully aware her son's body was already stone cold, she went to collect him from school. Lorys Stival issued a lawsuit against his daughter-in-law for defamation of character, claiming her lies and accusations regarding his grandson's murder had caused him intolerable stress and heartache. In addition to the tragic loss of his beloved grandson on whom he had doted, Andrea's lawyer spoke of immeasurable damage which harmed the integrity of his client. In her defence, Veronica accused investigators of having ignored her claims that 2 people had seen Andrea in the car with her that day when Lorys's body was dumped at the old mill. No evidence had ever come to light to support her declarations, and she was now considered a pathological liar. When challenged about all the fabrications and different versions of events she had recounted, Veronica stated that she initially had not remembered what happened that Saturday morning and hadn't intended to tell any lies. She claimed to have mixed up recollections from the day before and thought she really had taken her son to school on that fateful morning. She said memories started to return to her only after she was allowed to visit her son's grave, and she insisted it was her father-in-law who had perpetrated the crime. She went on to state, "I am incarcerated. He is at liberty. I take responsibility for my actions. I was wrong to say it was an accident. It is right that I pay, and I am in prison. But it is also right that anyone who was with me that morning pays too." A version of facts that investigators and judges deemed absolutely unreliable and without a shred of evidence. Veronica, incarcerated for the past 7 years and now 33 years old, was found guilty of slander against her father-in-law on the 17th of September 2021 at the court of Ragusa in Sicily. She was sentenced to a further 2 years in prison on top of her 30-year sentence for the murder of her child. In addition, she was ordered to pay all court costs and compensation to Lorys Stival of €24,000. It was decided by the court that Veronica was the only perpetrator of the crime, that she alone strangled Lorys, loaded his lifeless body into her car and dumped him in the irrigation ditch. Veronica threatened Andrea when led out of court, saying, "Are you happy now? You know what? I just pray to God that I find you dead when I get out. Otherwise I will kill you with my own bare hands." Veronica was not awarded any visiting rights to see her youngest son, and Davide commenced divorce proceedings in 2017. She is kept informed of Diego's progress by letter and photos, but Davide has no direct communication with her. In an interview, he claimed he didn't know what his wife's reaction had been when she received the divorce papers, but it was simply something that had to be done. He had initially stood by Veronica, but said he soon began to understand that she was involved. "I knew for sure that she was lying when she claimed Lorys's death had been an accident. Lorys would never have played such a dangerous game," he stated. In a message to his son, Davide would write, "I cling to the hope that I will see you again one day. This gives me the strength, as if you had never gone away. You live on in us like the most beautiful and colourful rainbow." He went on to write a book in 2018 entitled In the Name of Lorys, where he sheds light on many details of his life with Veronica and shares an array of documents and photographs. Davide stated that he wanted to relate his own truth and pain about events and to help his younger son, Diego, to understand what happened to his older brother and to give others the courage to deal with tragedy. "It's just me and Diego now, and he wants for nothing. Veronica destroyed everything, including herself," he states. Veronica Panarello was transferred to 4 different prisons over the years and now remains incarcerated at Turin in the far northwest of Italy, where she still proclaims her innocence. She has been studying to become a social worker, something that generated great controversy when it was reported. However, the truly innocent victim in this horrendous crime is poor Lorys Stival. the fun-loving little boy who would have celebrated his 15th birthday in June 2021. As usual, his affectionate father wrote a card for him on that day. "Without you, life is not as beautiful as it once was. Those jigsaw puzzles we used to make simply won't fit together anymore. We try to be strong, your little brother and I, and we succeed because we embrace the strength you transmit to us. In our hearts we carry all the happy memories, joy, laughter and love that we shared. Today you are teaching the world the true value of life and protecting other children from injustice. With our hearts full of love, we imagine you a little happier today, even though we can't hold you." Between a tear and a smile, happy birthday, Lorys. That concludes today's story. Thank you so much to Pimpotza for writing the case. Please add any comments down below. Thanks very much for listening to the Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. For his young son's future, Davide put every penny of the proceeds from his book into an account in Diego's name. Goodbye.